Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler was the Austrian-born leader of Nazi Germany from 1933 until his death. Born in 1889, Hitler was a World War I veteran and Nazi Party agitator. Hitler was appointed Chancellor in 1933 and by 1934 had seized full dictatorial power as Führer. His fascist regime employed ruthless methods, pervasive propaganda, a secret police known as the Gestapo, concentration camps, and terror to eliminate all opposition. Hitler's racist worldview led him to launch World War II in 1939 by invading Poland and to implement the Holocaust. Under his orders, the Nazis murdered 6 million Jews and millions of others in a systematic state-sponsored genocide. World War II itself cost over 50 million lives. Hitler's regime ended in catastrophe. As Soviet troops closed in on Berlin, he committed suicide in his bunker on April 30th, 1945, and Germany surrendered a week after. Joseph Stalin was the Soviet leader from the late 1920s until his death in 1953. He rose to power as General Secretary of the Communist Party and, by the 1930s, had dismantled internal democracy through purges. Stalin industrialized the Soviet Union but maintained power through total terror. His regime used an extensive secret police known as the NKVD, as well as the Gulag system of slave labor camps to suppress protests. The Great Purge of the 1930s alone saw hundreds of thousands executed or imprisoned. He also forced collectivization of agriculture and implemented policies that triggered a man-made famine known as the Holodomor in Ukraine and other regions in 1932 to 1933 that killed at least 5 million Soviet citizens. In all, historians credit Stalin with the deaths of tens of millions of his own people. Stalin did defeat Nazi Germany in World War II, but at enormous cost in Soviet lives with death tolls in the range of 20 to 30 million. Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong was the Chinese communist leader who proclaimed the People's Republic of China on the 1st of October 1949 and effectively led the country from 1949 until his death in 1976. He rose from peasant origins to prominence as a guerrilla organizer and supreme leader of the Chinese Communist Party. His government centralized power, suppressed dissent through party cadres and purges, persecuted intellectuals, and cultivated an intense cult of personality. Two of Mao's policies caused unprecedented mass deaths. First, the Great Leap Forward, which occurred from 1958 to 1962, sought rapid industrialization through forced collectivization. It instead collapsed agriculture and caused a famine that killed approximately tens of millions of Chinese. The Cultural Revolution was a decade of political campaigns and mass mobilization, occurring from 1966 to 1976, in which Red Guard and party campaigns targeted so-called counter-revolutionaries, producing widespread chaos and persecution, which led to the death of millions of people. Pol Pot. Born in 1925, Pol Pot led Cambodia's communist Khmer Rouge and was the dominant figure in democratic Kampuchea from 1975 to 1979. After seizing Phnom Penh in April 1975, the Khmer Rouge evacuated cities, abolished many pre-existing institutions and markets, and forced the population into collectivized rural labor as part of an extreme agrarian socialist program. The regime relied on mass executions, torture notably at the S-21 Security Center, forced labor in camps, and other forms of repression to eliminate perceived enemies of the revolution. Cambodia's countryside became notorious as the killing fields, where more than 1.3 million people were killed, roughly a quarter of the population at the time. Victims died from starvation, overwork, disease, or execution. As the regime targeted intellectuals, ethnic minorities, monks, and former government officials. In January 1979, invading Vietnamese forces ousted the Khmer Rouge, ending Pol Pot's reign of terror. Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan united the Mongol tribes and founded the Mongol Empire, ruling from 1206 to 1227. He rose to Supreme Khan and led unprecedented conquests across Asia and into Eastern Europe. His army was famous and feared for its brutal tactics. Cities or armies that resisted Mongol rule often faced total annihilation. Contemporary and later historians record that Genghis Khan's campaigns involved mass slaughter. Some sources have estimated that as many as roughly 40 million people may have died in the wider Mongol conquests. Entire regions were depopulated. Chroniclers report that Genghis demanded the eradication of populations in some conquered cities. For example, the sack of Nishapur in 1221. While the Mongol armies also facilitated trade and communication across Eurasia, Genghis Khan's legacy is inseparable from the devastation and population loss his campaigns inflicted on medieval societies. Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was the president of Iraq from 1979 until 2003. A Ba'ath Party strongman, Saddam ran ran Iraq as a secular police state, employing a vast intelligence and security apparatus to eliminate rivals. Saddam's rule was marked by ruthless campaigns against ethnic and political groups. In 1988, he ordered a chemical weapons attack on the Kurdish town of Halabja, where estimates placed the death toll between about 3,200 and 5,000 people, after Iraqi forces used chemical agents, including mustard gas and possibly nerve agents, against civilians. He also waged the Anfal campaign against Kurdish villages, a campaign widely described as genocidal in which tens of thousands died. Saddam brutally crushed a Shia uprising in 1991. He launched two major wars, the Iran-Iraq War from 1980 to 1988, which killed an estimated several hundred thousand to 1 million Iranians and Iraqis combined, and the 1990 invasion of Kuwait, which led to the 1991 Gulf War. These costly wars, plus his repressive security tactics, earned his regime notoriety. In December 2003, U.S. and coalition forces captured Saddam, codenamed Operation Red Dawn. He was executed by hanging on the 30th of December 2006, ending a regime remembered for brutality and regional destabilization. Kim Il-sung. Kim Il-sung was the founding dictator of North Korea, ruling from its establishment in 1948 until his death in 1994. A guerrilla leader against Japanese occupation, Kim Il-sung rose with Soviet backing to become the first premier and later president of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Kim imposed a Stalinist one-party system characterized by intense ideological control. He eliminated rivals through purges in the 1950s and built an elaborate cult of personality, eventually being declared North Korea's eternal president after death. Under his rule, North Korea was turned into a militarized, repressive state with pervasive surveillance and no dissent tolerated. The Juche ideology of self-reliance he championed led to long-term economic isolation. Although Kim did not live to preside over the 1990s famine, the policies he entrenched contributed to the catastrophe. Hundreds of thousands and possibly up to 1 million North Koreans died of starvation and related causes in the years following his death. Idi Amin. Idi Amin was a Ugandan military officer who seized power in 1971 and ruled as a dictator until 1979. A charismatic yet brutal figure, he became president of Uganda after overthrowing Milton Obote. Amin established a military dictatorship with no tolerance for opposition. Parliament was dissolved, elections cancelled, and a network of plainclothes secret police wielded life and death power. His rule was marked by extreme human rights abuses. The death toll from his regime has never been precisely counted, but estimates range from 100,000 to 300,000 Ugandans killed under Amin. Tens of thousands were rounded up, tortured, or executed for real or imagined disloyalty. Amin also expelled Uganda's Asian community of around 50 to 60,000 people of Indian descent in 1972, seizing their businesses and causing economic collapse. In 1979, after launching a disastrous war against Tanzania, Amin was ousted by Tanzanian forces and fled into exile. He died in Saudi Arabia in 2003, leaving Uganda a legacy of atrocity and national trauma. If you like this video, subscribe for more.